Welcome back for the last installment in the saga of RNGesus and the random sphere grid run. When we last saw the team, they had just defeated Lady Yuna in the heart of the ruins of the city of Zanarkand, and in the process destroyed the only means of defeating Sin, or so they've been led to believe, but the team isn't ready to give up just yet. They have a plan, and using it they intend to get inside Sin and defeat the one puppeteering him from within once and for all. The only things left in the main story are to beat a boss battle with Sin, then go to the last dungeon. But before that, with the newly acquired airship, the entire map is available to travel freely, so now is the time to start collecting all that delectable loot around the world, with the most tasty prizes being the celestial weapons, the ultimate weapons for each of our 7 heroes. And so the journey begins, with the grand prize being the 7 celestial weapons. The first task to that end is to get the celestial mirror, as none of the weapons can be obtained or upgraded without it. So first stop, Macalania Woods. Upon landing in Lake Macalania, the party runs south back into the woods and then onto a newly formed glowing path of light. There is a path blocked by some rando here, and they won't move for some reason. Back in the first area of the woods, there is a family, a mother and son, waiting for the father to arrive. Going a few screens away, the father can be found, and he apparently got lost, so he gets sent back to where his family is waiting. Except now the son is missing too, but make sure to talk to the mother twice. If you don't, you won't hear that the son has gone and the quest won't progress. The son is back on the path the person was blocking earlier, standing next to a glowing bulb of some kind. And interacting with this spot turns the cloudy mirror, obtained from Remium Temple's Chocobo race way back in part 3, into the celestial mirror. This spot is also where all the weapons will be upgraded from this point on. Since we happen to be in the neighborhood, the first weapon on the docket for upgrading is Kimahri's, as it requires playing the butterfly game in Macalania Woods. There are 2 games, one in each of the long, winding paths in Macalania Woods. They are increased in difficulty since the first time through the area, but they aren't like hard or anything. There is some trial and error required with dodging red butterflies, since they can be a little awkward to judge distance with the bad camera angle. It took a couple tries, but the nice thing is after you activate the butterfly game, random encounters are turned off until you leave the area. It took a total of about 10 minutes to get both games down and collect the prize, the Saturn Sigil. I'm going to go ahead and rank the 7 sigils in terms of how much of a pain I consider them to get. If you remember from part 3, I actually already have one, the Sun Sigil, from the Chocobo training minigame in the Calmlands, and so I'll go ahead and rank that one as well right now. For the Saturn Sigil and the Butterfly minigame, I give it a 6 out of 7. Not terribly difficult, but can be a pain sometimes. If you just really cannot get the positioning of the red butterflies, you might have to retry this a bunch of times, which sucks. But you aren't really in danger as the random battles are super easy. Now for the Sun Sigil and the Chocobo training minigame. This one I give a 5 out of 7. I know this will get some flack from people, but I really don't think it's that hard. And I'll go over later why I think most of the others are harder, but the biggest thing about this game is that you can just keep trying until you get it. And once you get into the groove of it, you'll have an easier time dodging birds, which is really the biggest thing. Get as many balloons as you can and dodge birds, and don't worry about your actual finish time. That's all. Before continuing on with the next weapon, I got all the airship password stuff out of the way. Doing so unlocks a bunch of secret locations, including the dungeons Baj Temple and Omega Ruins, and also Rikku's celestial weapon God Hand. I should also mention the Phantom Bangle armor for Lulu, as it is a serious upgrade for her defensively and comes in handy later. After picking all that stuff up, the next weapon to work on is Yuna's, as there is a lot of steps involved for her, and she gets a lot more than just her weapon in the process. First stop, Zanarkand. As I'm sure you'll recall, there was a Cloister of Trials there, but unlike the others, the Destruction Sphere was never found. It is actually impossible to do before getting the airship and making a return trip. The Destruction Sphere requires stepping on all the white square Tetris pieces without triggering any of the other shapes. Before I can actually use this, a certain deadly boss will need to be handled, and so I need to prepare for that first. The next destination was Jose High Road, as there are some enemies there that drop armor with the Stone Ward effect. I also took this time to make sure I captured every enemy here, which is a step in the progress of another weapon down the line. I never did get the Stone Ward armor, but I got bored and went back to Calmlands to try there instead. Another enemy there drops the same thing, and conveniently you need to catch all the enemies from the Calmlands for Yuna's weapon anyway. So, 2 birds, 1 stone, I caught those guys and everything else I was missing from the Calmlands, then picked up Nirvana from the Monster Arena. After fighting the enemies that dropped the Stone Ward armor in the arena, I got super lucky and picked up a Stone Ward armor for Wakka on the first try. Sweet. Time to go try this boss on for size. The boss is called Geino, I think I'm pronouncing that right, and lives in the optional area Botch Temple. And unfortunately, his boss battle is underwater, so only Wakka, Rikku, and RNGesus can participate. I went and tried to fight him, but I got my ass handed to me. The stone on his punches wasn't even the biggest issue, everything about him was tough. I figured this can wait, so I went to do something else real quick. Another item needed for Yuna's sigil is the Blossom Crown, and to get it you need to catch all the monsters in Mount Gagazet. Well, I caught almost all of them the first time through, but I missed a very specific one, the Grenade. They have a ton of HP and blow up after only 3 hits, so dealing enough damage to kill them was an issue at the time. But now, with Focus and Yuna's Blizzaga, it's a lot more doable, so I managed to catch one and finish up my monster roster in Mount Gagazet. Doing so provides the reward, the Blossom Crown, from the old man at the Monster Arena. I will need this item to get the Magus Sisters later, but before I can do that, I need to get the other optional Aeons first. The easiest one available right now is Yojimbo, located in the Cavern of the Stolen Faith, which we have never been to, not even once. During some dungeon crawling in there, the party encounter an enemy called a Ghost, and defeat it with relative ease. But the thing drops a very important item, armor with the effect No Encounters for Wakka. Again, first try, what absolute bonkers luck. At the end of the cavern is an unsent summoner, the very same one who Lulu was the guardian for. She summons Yojimbo to attack the party, so they go into action to battle him. The battle is going quite well, but, well, when he gets his overdrive, he immediately uses the ability Zanmato, which is a party wipe. Knowing that that is a thing that can happen, on the second attempt there is no holding back, and Yuna just smashes him with Gospels. Yojimbo requires a little bit of haggling in order to actually get access to him, but the party has enough cash on hand and managed to secure a contract. First Aeon secured. Next up, we have to go back to that damn boss in the water, Geino. Not playing nice this time, I got Rikku, Wakka, and RNGesus all charged up with their overdrive in advance. When battle begins, Rikku uses Mix with 2 Wings of Discovery. The effect of this is called Trio of 9999 and makes every damage instance deal 9,999 damage. Rikku gets taken out shortly after this, but it doesn't matter. Once RNGesus gets his turn, he finally does something useful and uses Slice and Dice on the boss. With each hit doing 9,999 and hitting 6 times, it was enough to kill the boss straight up. Once the boss is dead, Botch Temple can be explored finally. In the water near the boss is Lulu's weapon, the Onion Knight, just sitting in a chest. Going inside the temple proper is a small puzzle with a bunch of statues. To open the door further in, each of these statues needs to be interacted with, and that means finding the Destruction Sphere at each temple along the way. For each temple is a statue, and if even one Destruction Sphere is missing, it won't open. For anybody who might play this game in the future, please, for the love of God, make sure you don't miss the Destruction Spheres on your first run through. Some temples, such as Besaid and Macalania, are essentially impossible to get back to later in the game as dark Aeons block the entrance. You have been warned. After getting inside the inner chamber, Yuna finds another faith. This one is for the Aeon Anima, the very same Aeon that Seymour summoned. It turns out Anima is a faith created from Seymour's mother as an attempt to give him power. However, when Seymour got his hands on such power, it just made him want even more, culminating in his lust to become sin and destroy all life. Seymour's mother regrets her role in creating this monster, so she lends Yuna her power to stop him. 2 Aeons down, now it is finally time to go back to Remium Temple and get the last optional Aeon using the Flower Scepter and Blossom Crown. The last Aeon is the Magus Sisters, and since we already have the required items, it's just a matter of going to visit their faith in Remium Temple. And now that Yuna has every Aeon, the last step is to use them to defeat Belgamine's Aeons. One last romp through summon battles, but these ones are a total joke to be honest. First up is Belgamine's Yojimbo, completely obliterated by the Magus Sisters. Next up is Belgamine's Anima, completely obliterated by the Magus Sisters. Finally is Belgamine's Magus Sisters, one shot by Anima's Overdrive Oblivion. That was really fast. After all her Aeons are defeated, Belgamine gifts Yuna the Moon Sigil, then disappears to the afterlife, her task in this world complete. And now Yuna can finally upgrade her weapon to max. As for the Moon Sigil, I'll rank this one a 3 out of 7. This is a big pain in the butt with too many steps. Yes, you get a whole pile of other good stuff for Yuna in the process, with the optional Aeons being overpowered. But capturing fiends in 2 of the more difficult areas, and then fighting an optional boss that can one-hit KO you and requires a specific party to battle? And that isn't even mentioning the fact that you can lock yourself out of getting Anima if you missed a Destruction Sphere in Besaid or Makalania. Big ouch. After finishing Nirvana, I also went to pick up Kimahri's actual weapon, the Spirit Lance. This is located in the Thunder Plains and just requires following a ghostly cactuar. With the no encounters armor, it's a piece of cake. But speaking of the Thunder Plains... Okay, time for a rant. Lightning dodging is by far the hardest task in this game, and the most tedious. Why is the number of consecutive lightning dodges 200? Isn't that a bit excessive? Even 100 feels like it takes ages. Anyway, using the strategy I'm showing on screen right now, the actual act of dodging lightning itself isn't actually hard, but it is stressful. Because there's always that lingering worry that if I mess up now, I'll have to start over from zero, and it just gets worse and worse the closer you get to the end. Plus, you have to keep count while doing it, because if you dodge too few, then you might mess up on the walk to the travel agency to get your reward. The amount of time it took to do this all in one go was about 10 minutes. It doesn't sound that long, but that's 10 minutes of being on constant high alert. Anyway, if it isn't obvious, this is my pick for most difficult celestial weapon. If it weren't for the fact that it is completely amazing for Lulu, and Lulu is one of my most important party members, I might have considered skipping it. But alas, I put in the time and I got it done in one try, so that makes 4 weapons done now, 3 to go. The next weapon on the list is Auron's Masamune. This requires catching a bunch of monsters in different areas. The actual requirement is 10 total of either area completion bonuses or species completion bonuses, with any combination being fine. Of the 2, area completion is generally easier, as you only need 1 of each fiend from the area to count. Species completion requires more, and you might have to catch them from harder areas. So I went with all area completion, with the areas I ended up going for being Besaid, Kilika, Mihen High Road, Mushroom Rock, Jose High Road, Thunder Plains, Makalania Woods, Cavern of the Stolen Faith, Calmlands, and Mount Gagazet. Calmlands and Mount Gagazet are both required for Yuna, so those are a given, and many of the others are low enough level to be simple. It should be mentioned that none of these require you to defeat the actual boss fiend the old man creates, just unlock them. After you unlock the 10th one, the last one from me being Mushroom Rock, you get the Mars Sigil as a reward. I'll rank this one a 4 out of 7, right in the middle. Most of the areas you have to capture fiends from are stupidly easy and you aren't in danger, and a couple overlap with Yuna, but you will have to expose yourself to danger in some form to get enough in the end. So not extremely hard, but also not extremely easy. Up next is Rikku. Rikku's sigil is all located on Bikanel Island and involves hunting a bunch of cactuars in various locations around the island. If you have a no encounters armor, this quest is a piece of cake. It took me less than an hour to do the whole quest, and I actually fought them all. You don't even have to if you want to do the bare minimum, as you can fail all of the minigames and still get the sigil. I did work hard to try and win them all though, only failing one minigame along the way, and defeated all the cactuars to get XP. Generally, that meant summoning the Magus Sisters, since cactuars are quite a pain to kill in the conventional sense, and deal a lot of damage. The Mercury Sigil is definitely my pick for easiest. You can essentially no effort this by just turning off encounters and intentionally failing the cactuar minigames. It still takes like an hour to complete, but all you're doing is wandering the desert for a while, no danger whatsoever. If you actually want to complete the cactuar minigames, it is a step up, but since that is optional, I won't count it towards the ranking. Alright, so you want to know the real reason this took such a long ass time? Well, here it is, Wakka's weapon, which requires playing Blitzball. A lot of Blitzball. The general idea is that you need to get all of Wakka's overdrives from Blitzball winnings before his sigil will appear, and they are given out as rewards for, in order, attack reels from a tournament, status reels from a league, Aurochs reels from a tournament, and finally, Jupiter Sigil from a league. A league is 10 games, no more, no less, and a tournament is either 2 or 3 games, depending on how you get seeded. Since a league is always running at all times, and you have to finish one to reset the prizes, you have to do a minimum of 4 leagues to get everything. 1 to get the first tournament with attack reels to pop, then another which has status reels as the reward, then another to get the tournament with Aurochs reels to pop, and finally a last one to get the Jupiter sigil as the reward. A total of 44 to 46 games. Each game takes about 10 minutes on the fast end. Absolutely bananas. Now you can forfeit some games to speed this process up. If you're on a dud league with no prize worth working towards, you can just forfeit every game. Though even that takes effort because the AI is so stupid it can't score a goal without you helping it. And it needs to score a goal on you before the forfeit option appears. But at least with a bad goalie like RNGesus, it's hard for them to miss. But you still need to win the vast majority of those 44 to 46 games to finish all this, so it takes many hours to complete this task. Anyway, winning games is a piece of cake with RNGesus, as Jecht shot is completely OP, and at some point I even picked up Nimruk as my goalie. This removes the only opposing goalie that can actually block shots well, so after that every game is over in a flash. I also want to shout out Brother, as his absurd stats and movement speed make getting the ball to RNGesus a complete joke. It took somewhere in the 7 or 8 hour range to get this all done, but I finally got Wakka's weapon, the World Champion, maxed out. The Jupiter Sigil is my pick for rank 2 out of 7 for hardest to obtain. No, Blitzball is not a difficult minigame to win, but 8 hours? You've got to be kidding me. That is significantly longer than all the others added together. What a pain. Even forfeiting matches didn't reduce the time all that much. With all the celestial weapons obtained, this long chapter of optional content finally comes to a close. I'll make a minor mention of the Omega Ruins, as I didn't spend any time there. I just went in, picked up the Albed Primer, and left. The only thing worth getting there in a challenge like this is Kimahri's strongest overdrive, Nova, but it would be way too hard to get to and kill Omega. So just skipping that. Mark the Omega Ruins off as incomplete for this run. Time for the final showdown with Sin. Yeehaw! To begin the final battle, the airship starts broadcasting the Hymn of the Faith at full volume. This draws Sin near, and the party runs upstairs to get ready. Sid gets his biggest gun ready to rip a hole open in Sin and let them inside. Out on the airship deck, the hymn can be heard, and apparently Shalinda really did have a lot of social media followers because the people are singing along. Before the battle can begin, Sin decides to show off his true anime power and makes a big spirit bomb that alters the shape of the Earth's atmosphere. Then he fires it in 6 directions, carving a hole in space each direction, which naturally explodes a few seconds later. And this really was just a show of power because literally nobody is hurt by this, just annoyed. Sin starts pulling the airship closer and the battle finally starts. At first, Sin is really far away, so only Wakka and Magic can hit him. Luckily, Yuna is the strongest attacker already with her Gospels, but RNGesus or Rikku can order Sid to get closer, like in the Evray battle. This is a trap, and when I attempted to do this, I immediately got wiped the next time Sin got a turn. It was brutal. So, swearing to never get close to him ever again, on my next attempt I stuck with a turtle casting setup. After all is said and done, my basic build is the 3 ladies, Yuna, Rikku, and Lulu. Yuna is by far the biggest damage source, with Lulu helping her out with focus. She also does some decent damage after focus is maxed out. And Rikku is on support, as usual, giving haste and heals. After enough damage is dealt to the left fin, the airship shows off its big guns and blows it clean off. Now, onto the other side. And this is a straight up repeat with no changes. Just letting the girls do what they do best and blowing it up with Gospels. I did swap in the others to get some XP before the end though. All in all, the fins took about 10 minutes together. Now, the airship is out of juice for the big guns, so the party decides to jump down on their own. Naturally, Lulu goes first because she's queen. This battle is now a repeat of a boss back in Kilika, the Sin spawn that likes to use poison and hide in a shell. Would it surprise you to hear that I beat this guy using magic from Yuna and Lulu? And it went even faster because it's weak to fire. When it was low, I did swap in Wakka however, since Yuna has a very pathetic HP pool and I wanted to avoid putting her in danger. Now, the final part of this battle is against the core, and this thing basically just charges up Gravija over and over again. Gravija, of course, is gravity magic, so it only does percentage HP of all targets. It can't actually deal lethal damage. So how does it win then? Well, with counterattacks, of course. Whenever it takes damage, it counters with a magic spell that hits every party member for modest damage. For me, it was in the range of 500 or so. After a Gravija, that could certainly be lethal, but with some heals in between, it's a non-factor. Since physical damage is garbage against this thing, I brought Yuna back to continue her nuking. This phase took about 15 minutes. After the core is destroyed, Sin comes crashing down into the ocean near Bavel, and everybody came out of this with a lot of sphere levels. This was when Yuna finally got enough levels to finish the spiral and reach the center. Ultima, the most powerful black magic.
Such devastation! This was not my intention!
There is one more battle against Sin left before the end, this time face to face. The team assembles on the deck of the airship again, and it only takes a couple of turns for Sin to approach close enough for melee strikes. The gimmick of this battle, though, is that he is charging up overdrive, and if he gets it, instant game over. There's no way to mitigate it, you just lose. Which means there's a hard and fast time limit. Not knowing that it was that severe, I attempted the battle blind and got hit with Giga Graviton. My battle strategy was basically the same as before. Yuna on nukes, and some extra damage from Rikku with shining gems. Ultima did a lot of damage, but it's also kinda slow, so my second attempt I switched back to Gospels. The second attempt was looking good, but then he wiped my party by turning all three of them to stone at the same time. So, the third attempt, this time I was not having this nonsense. I summoned the Magic Sisters. And it was looking spicy for them too. Mindy and Cindy did pretty awful damage on their turns, but Sandy, she knows how to get it done. Razia did roughly 50,000 damage per hit, which is 1/3 of Sin's max HP, so yeah, 3 uses of that ended the fight. Go strongest Aeon, I guess. Now we come to the final dungeon of Final Fantasy X, Inside Sin. In the first area, I actually decided to do some battles to get a little bit of last minute XP, but after a certain point, I put the no encounters armor back on. The fights just take too long and are too frequent, and I'm in a hurry, man. Papa Jecht is waiting. But another little pest decides to poke his head in before the real final boss can show up, Seymour. This guy really can't take a hint. Except this is by far the easiest of the battles with Seymour. Kind of a disappointment considering the music is so awesome. Lulu has an armor that absorbs 3 out of 4 elements, and so does Yuna. And then Rikku has Victorious, which nullifies the damage to 0. So that means my girl team once again is front and center, since Seymour literally can't hurt them with his basic spells. The only thing to watch out for is his cast of Ultima, which I mitigated using Stamina Tonics to double max HP and got max focus stacks. Damage was once again Yuna and Lulu with nukes and Rikku with shining gems. Honestly, a very easy battle. The next area is the City of the Dead, and I just sprinted through it. The end is too close now to slow down. So now, here I am at the last save point in the game, the Tower of the Dead, ready to rock and roll. Before the fight, I want to show off the stats and available moves each character had at the very end. I'll just let this scroll past, you can pause if you want to see in more detail. The last area before the boss is a rather annoying little minigame where you have to pick up 10 shining orbs while avoiding spikes of ice. touching a spike causes a random encounter, and the camera is constantly rotating. What a weird thing to do right before the final battle. Anyway, after being teleported to the Blitzball arena from Zanarkand, except way more badass looking, the party sees Jecht standing there waiting. RNGesus and Auron have their last goodbyes, and the final battle begins. So, I tried doing this the hard way, as usual, going in mostly blind, just using whatever strategy has worked up until now. In this case, Girl Party, with Rikku on support, Yuna and Lulu on damage. Yuna casting Ultima would consistently kill the pagodas, at first. Though later on, they got increasingly higher HP pools, which made deleting them difficult. The damage from Jecht's basic attacks was actually stupidly high and would consistently one-shot Yuna or Rikku. Eventually, I remembered stamina tonics and popped one of those, but even with a stamina tonic, Yuna had barely 3000 HP, not enough, and Rikku kept dying before I could get her properly set up. Then there was Jecht Beam, which would consistently turn someone to stone. This also removes haste, which is a huge annoyance. And whenever he gets overdrive, Triumphant Grasp will apply zombie to whoever is the unfortunate soul he grabs, assuming they survive to begin with. So all this to say, I was never in a very commanding position during this battle. It was always recovering from whatever horrible thing happened. I even tried using Aeons to burst him down, but the damage just wasn't enough to finish him. In the second phase, he also routinely gets multiple turns in a row, thanks to the pagodas speeding him up. If those multiple turns include a sword swipe or ultimate Jecht shot, well, that's the end of the story, which is exactly what happened after roughly 45 minutes straight of battle. So naturally, my next attempt was going to be maximum cheese. Anybody familiar with the no sphere grid run of this game probably knows this, but Rikku is really stupidly broken. So I used Mix, put together 2 Wings of Discovery, got Trio of 9999 on my party, which included RNGesus and Wakka, both with max overdrive, and then proceeded to win the fight with 10 minutes of total battle, including getting all that set up. Attack Reels won the first phase, Slice and Dice plus a Fire Gem from Rikku won the second. A total joke. And so, the real final boss being taken down, it was time for the victory lap. Yevon and all the Aeons. This battle can't be lost, since everybody is rocking auto life at all times. So it's really just a matter of fighting until you win. You battle each Aeon in a row, in whichever order you want. I just went down the list from Valefor to Magisisters. Valefor, Ifrit, Ixion, Shiva, Bahamut, Anima, and Yojimbo all got one-shot by Ultima. The Magisisters did survive, but were quickly taken out by a second cast. Finally, Yevon himself. This fight, he will continuously hurt himself with Gravija, so if you really want to, you can just stand there until he's low and kill him with anything. But I wanted to speed this up, so I used the Trio of 9999 trick again to just end it as soon as possible. And that's it. Final Fantasy X completed with a randomized sphere grid path. Except, that isn't really a satisfying ending, now is it? Cheesing out the final boss with a broken trick? No way, man. I didn't want to accept that either. So I thought about it long and hard. How could I beat this guy legit with the abilities that I have on hand? And it came to me in a flash of brilliance. Yuna isn't the key after all. She was dragging me down with her terrible HP pool. Rikku as well. She's MVP of this run, don't get me wrong, but this last attempt would put her on the sidelines after all. No, I needed a party well suited to this battle defensively, so I went to work putting that together. Alright, I'm going to need you to please forgive me. I did actually make one concession to make this work. I removed the ban on Customize. Yes, I actually did forgo using Customize for this entire run up to this moment. I only used armor that I obtained by random chance or from shops. But I wanted to make sure I had the maximum opportunity to win this thing in the most satisfying way, so I made this one change to my rules. I customized armor of my 3 main members, Auron, Wakka, and Lulu. Wakka, I had an armor with HP plus 10% ready to roll, so I just stuck Stoneproof on it and called it a day. Auron also had a similar armor with Zombie Ward as a cherry on top, so I stuck Stoneproof on there as well and some more HP for good measure. Finally, my last member would be Lulu, and I made sure to give her a similar piece of armor with HP increases and Stoneproof. Now, my party had very respectable HP levels, enough that Lulu and Auron would top 9,000 after a stamina tonic, and they would be immune to Jecht Beam's stone effects. The last factor here is something I actually haven't mentioned yet, but both Wakka and Auron have access to the ability Use from Rikku's grid. Auron picked it up during the random side questing for celestial weapons. With Use, I can haste the whole party with a chocobo wing, buff their HP with a stamina tonic, and give Protect and Shell with light and lunar curtains. Auron also has access to Cheer and Lulu Focus, so I can max out those respective stats as well. And of course, we can't forget how strong Wakka's Overdrive is. So with this setup, I went to work, and it took a pretty long time to get the party into position with all their buffs ready to go actually. But after assembling my team and getting them buffed and in position, it was mostly a battle of little pricks. Lulu deals roughly 2,000 damage with physical attacks, Wakka a little less than that, and Auron basically is negligible. I completely ignored the pagodas for the most part. Sometimes Wakka would kill them with his overdrive, but otherwise they were left alone. Their healing isn't such a big deal, and even Jecht's overdrive is pretty easy to tank with 9,000 HP. There was one time I forgot it gives zombie though, because I stupidly went and used a Mega Elixir and let Auron die from it. That was a big whoopsie. But after recovering from that little boo-boo, it was just a matter of keeping things under control and slowly picking away at his HP. The second phase was more dangerous, since his sword swipes hit the full party, and he was actually pretty close to a party wipe once when he hit multiple times in a row. Also, during the second phase, I realized something I stupidly forgot about, Shining Gems. That allowed Auron and Wakka to deal a hell of a lot higher damage per turn, as they hit for 5,000 or more per hit. Believe it or not, this worked, and I eventually took him down. It took about 40 minutes of battle from start to finish. Now that is a much more satisfying conclusion, wouldn't you say? The final boss, defeated with a party using legitimate defensive and offensive tactics. Despite their miserable stats, everything came together in the end, and no mixed cheese. Well, this is the end of the challenge. Honestly, I didn't expect it to be quite as difficult as it turned out to be in the end. Along the journey, I always made sure to follow the rules and roll a die whenever there was a fork, even if every path led somewhere I've already been. This is why many characters ended up going around in circles and getting no stats from their levels. I would also roll a die if there was a lock sphere and treated it as if it were a fork in the path, with one big exception, Ultima. I decided that rolling the dice 4 times in a row to break those 4 level 4 locks was a waste of the big chance to get Ultima, so I just let her roll through. She earned it by going through that long spiral of nodes anyway. In the end, everybody was in pretty bad shape for endgame. Even Yuna and Lulu, who were the highest in terms of raw stats, were still underpowered. Yuna in endgame in a normal run will do at least 9,999 damage with Holy, and same with Lulu and her Gospels, but they were doing much less than that. Obviously, the physical fighters were in even worse shape, with the strongest being Wakka, but he did even less damage than Lulu with his hits. Yuna was strong enough to carry a lot of fights toward the end, but her HP pool being so bad made it difficult to keep her alive. That was why I decided to sideline her for the final battle. Auron, with access to Use and a much higher HP pool, was a better choice in the end. For my final thoughts, this was a fun but difficult challenge. The first part of the game felt pretty breezy. Nothing was a huge challenge until about Macalania. After that point, random battles started becoming much more dangerous, with home being particularly painful to get through, and bosses started taking a very long time to defeat, with turtle strategies being the mainstay. After about Mount Gagazet, battles were so time-consuming that I decided to avoid them altogether. The XP gained wasn't worth the time wasted, and that was when a solid strategy that abused boss weaknesses became a necessity just to stay alive. Knowing that Seymour could be poisoned and silenced, or that putting Reflect on the Sanctuary Keeper kept it from healing, were 100% necessary to win. And in that way, I think the run became pretty interesting. In a normal run, you could brute force all of that stuff. Your Wakka could roll in with attack reels and wipe a boss out right off the bat. But my Wakka did only a few thousand damage with attack reels, so there had to be a lot more thought put into how to keep things from getting out of hand. If you decide to take this challenge on yourself, be prepared to have the game difficulty spike on you pretty hard. It'll come out of nowhere and it'll be overwhelming, but resist the temptation to cheese your way through with Rikku's Mix or Aeons. You might just learn some things about the way combat is designed in this game, and that will make you appreciate it more. Thanks for sticking all the way through this. This is my first completed challenge series, and I'm excited to try something new in the future. If you have any great ideas for a challenge run, in Final Fantasy or other games as well, shoot me a comment and I'll take a look. If you enjoyed this series, then hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on my next challenge coming soon. Everybody, give Final Fantasy X another run yourself, and have a wonderful day.